Welcome back and thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today on Agric Talk we are talking about pest control products, and with me are two guests, that is Eric Mugui, the CEO of the Agrochemical Association of Kenya, and Dr. Esther Kimani, the CEO of Pest Control Products Board. Dr. Eric, before we went on a break, you're talking about a notice that you've already given. Maybe you can pick it up from there.
Yes. Maybe I may mention there was this parliamentary petition that that was discussed in Parliament.
It was proposed by Dr. By Cholet. Gladys
yes, by Madam
Gladys Cholet.
Yes, Gladys Cholet, and whatever was discussed as industry and also as the regulatory body, we took the information or the concerns that they had very seriously. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was to start off a process to find out, to analyze that information from a scientific point of view, because whatever decisions we make need scientific backing. And so what we have done right now, we informed the industry that we are going to start a risk assessment processes, and this is in realization with some of the products may have been in the market for a very long time, and since they were approved, new scientific information has come up, mm-hmm. and we needed to consider it. And so the industry brought in the information they had, and also we put up now a notice also to the public, in case anybody has got any extra information, also to submit it to us.
Okay.
So that process now has closed, and now we are in the next step whereby the scientists and the experts are going to look at all that information that has been submitted, both by the industry and the other scientists from the public, and also the public itself, because you find that actually for some of the information we are receiving, the public would want some of the pesticides to still continue because of the importance they have in the activities they are doing. For example, you find like in potatoes, there are some pesticides that are used for controlling late blight, and you can't grow potatoes without managing late blight. And the public is very concerned that if we remove some of those products, they may not be able to farm their potatoes. But all this will be taken through a risk assessment exercise by a team of experts. And then from there, we'll be able to recommend and advise our government on the way forward with regard to the pesticides.
Okay.
Yes.
On the same petition, the petition had mentioned around 327 products, yes, that they were proposing for ban. Has the board been able to look at all those 327 products?
I think during the petition also, the Pest Control Products Board was also invited to Parliament to defend some of the what did I say, the pesticides, or why we have registered them. And we were able to also take Parliament through the rigorous processes that we go through, and also the guidelines that guide us in our decision making. And I think in that process, I think now 62 products are the ones that remained on that list. And they are the ones that first we are giving priorities. That does not mean that we will not look at any other products, but those ones first is what we are first prioritizing, the ones that were put on that list. And let me tell you that the risk assessment or analysis exercise is very detailed and very vigorous, and it takes a lot of resources. And so also, besides doing the exercise, we are also looking for resources to be able to do what needs to be done. Besides doing the risk assessment, also we are collaborating with the industry and others to create awareness, because Actually, some of the pesticides, though they may stay in the market, we appreciate that actually farmers have to do their business or the way they handle the products differently. So we expect that maybe through that risk assessment, we may not be able to withdraw some of the products, but we may have to put very stringent measures and restrictions for use. For example, it's even like the other day we had outbreaks of locusts. As much as we would want to use biological control products for management of locusts, their mode of action is usually slow. So you can only have systems whereby maybe you are using those biological control products in there, where at the source where they are being produced. But for the ones that are flying around, you may need a chemical that will knock them down, which may not be very friendly. But so you have to describe on how it should be handled, by who, how it should be stored, so that you minimize or you mitigate the adverse effect that it may have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Eric a little bit. Eric, on the same issue on the petition, the 327 products that were on that petition, if all those products were taken off the shelf, what will that mean for your members?
I think to answer your question, not to our members, to the country.
Or to the country,
yeah. Or the East African, it totally collapsed. It totally collapsed. I can tell you, just to bring statistics home, back home, even with the current use, pesticides, our members bring in innovations because there's demand. Farmers are growing, farmers are expanding. EU, in its own wisdom, decided to take a different approach in registration products. They look at the intrinsic property rather than risk assessment. Reasons why you'll find everybody saying products banned in EU. Why are people talking about America? Russia, where we import 50% of our Pakistan, where we get our rice. And tomatoes, 60% of our imports come from Tanzania. And if you look at those statistics, and even with the current use of pesticides, Kenya, or even Africa, is using globally 5% of the total production of pesticides in the world. Kenya. Brazil is the biggest producer of coffee, we know. It's the biggest competitor. These things are there, but in a small world. So what we are talking about is EU, in its own wisdom, decided to take a different approach, which we respect. But then we cannot be used, if you compare EU and Kenya, it's like you're comparing what and what. Kenya is a country, EU is a bloc of 26 countries. It's unfair to mention that without looking at, EU is in temperate countries. We are in tropics. The pests that we receive here, that are the pests that are there. So it is rather a difficult approach, but we leave it there for people to understand. So basically what we are saying here, if we withdraw all the products that you're talking about, the backbone of Kenya goes, and that is agriculture. You will not produce wheat. You will sow the livelihoods. You will not control those locusts. Imagine if we never manage to control those locusts. We will not be here. We will not be here. So pesticides of crop plays a critical role in the Kenyan economy. And not in Kenyan economy, in the world economy, but they have to be used by responsibility. And that's what we need to address. I've given you statistics on imports. So if we have to withdraw, and I thank God that in the wisdom of Parliament, they decided to return this thing to scientists so they can do proper risk assessment. But if we are to use the emotions and the language that has been portrayed and say ban those products, Kenya cannot afford to feed the population that we have if we don't produce food. Totally, the economy of Kenya will go because it's agro-based. It contributes a lot to the GDP, and all the countries that we are importing food from, we have not controlled that. How are you going to guarantee the safety of Kenyans? So it is something that is good to talk on in discussions, but practically when we are talking about, we are not putting Kenyan, because the world is struggling to feed the growing population. And here we are busy removing the technologies. And as an industry, I can tell you, in terms of safety to human beings and everything, we are very pragmatic. Right now, 30% of registered products here are biological in nature. Organic production will never feed this world. That's the truth. Organic production with those guys who feel like EU, they have enough resources, they have gone higher. We are still struggling to put food on the table. Now, diets are something else. So we must be able to say, fine, what is it that have held an issue of concern? Raise it. We have just strengthened the regulations and PCBB bill, and those are where people can come and say, we feel we need to improve here, we need to improve here. But you cannot just come and say a blanket ban. If product is not used in EU itself right now, we cannot export a product with any pest. Talk of mangoes. Mangoes was opened the other day because of fruit fly. We're not managed to manage fruit fly. We have issues of tutor absolute on tomatoes that wiped out of East Africa. You saw the locust issue. And we have so many false codling moths. That is the biggest threat we cannot control. EU will not want to see even a single pest there. It's notifiable. How are you going to manage it? So there are a lot of challenges that are really practical that a farmer must see and do that. And those smallholder farmers are the ones producing beans for the EU, meaning they are complying with the market, isn't it? So whenever there are issues that needs to be addressed, there are better ways of addressing, like creating awareness, like the CEO has mentioned. So those are the things. And where we feel that the product cannot be used with the required gap. I can give you an example. 5 years ago, we had a product called dimethyl T in this country, which the industry voluntarily said we restrict it and even remove it on French bees because it's going to EU to protect the markets there and even the local guys. It was withdrawn. Chlorophyll was followed. So there are things that whenever science shows, because science is evolving and new things are coming up, and whenever they're coming up, then it can be discussed and evaluated, as the doctor said. So the decisions to ban those products you're mentioning typically means you have no food on the table, means these roads will not be constructed, means Kenya stops being the leader in East Africa and cripples down and it becomes, and we start looking for aid. Do you want us to go there? No, that's the question. If that is the philosophy, and I don't think there's any government that will allow that. That's part of the national security. That does protect the citizens against food. So the topic that is being withdraw or not withdraw is something very nice on the tongue and creating emotions, but is very, very severe in the Kenyan economy.
Okay. So from what I'm getting from you, do you think they are maybe politicizing this conversation of pesticides?
I think
without a backing of science.
Yes, I think for me the discussion should be: are these pesticides necessary? The answer is yes. How are we going to address the issue of farmers? You cannot say, I've had some certain narrative that safe use is not practical in Africa. How? Even the Panadols that we need, we have to use them safely. You have to train those farmers. Everybody must use a product. Even this light, we must use them responsibly. So it doesn't touch us on things. So it becomes so clear that people can attach discussions surrounding pesticides and create a certain narrative in the minds of Kenyans. And bring on, because people have never appreciated the role crop protection plays in developing rural economy, in putting food on the table, and also in driving the economies in the world. But the moment they look at that, then the discussion will change. So it is about politics sometimes, it's about policies, it's about a position of a country, which we need to respect. But also, as the CEO said, that let countries do their responsibilities, because they have that responsibility as a government to take care of its own people, and that's why Pest Control Products Board exists. So for us, to tell the public that listening to here, let them restore confidence in pest control products, in Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services, and county governments, that they are doing a good role to make sure that food is safe for them, the environment is safe for them. That's the bare minimum that the country can do for its own citizens. Okay.
Let me come back to Dr. Kimani as the control board. Our borders are very porous. Have there been cases whereby some products that have been banned and being used by our neighbors are finding its way back to us? And what is the board doing to avert such?
Let me first also comment about the banned chemicals and assure the citizens that I explained how and the guidelines that we use when deciding whether to ban pesticides or not. If a pesticide has been discussed through the conventions and it has been recommended for banning, we ban it immediately. And we have done for several pesticides such as the DDT, that is not supposed to be used, and others that have been banned at that convention level and have been withdrawn from the market. However, the pesticides that we are debating about are those ones that even countries around the world have not agreed whether they should be withdrawn from the market or not. Now coming to the issue of banned pesticides coming through the porous border, I must say that dealing with porous border is very tricky And one of the things that we are doing at PCPB is to bring this to the attention of government more and more on the reason why the Pest Control Products Board needs to be strengthened, why we need to be at the border, because whenever the border is not being managed properly or not being managed by technical people who understand the intricacies and the dangers of certain products, you find that there may be people that are coming. There have been many rumors, so not only rumors, because also we have done, actually besides the manufacturing, registering, issuing permits for import and exports and the things that I had said, we also do a lot of surveillance around the country to see how the pesticides are being used and also where people are getting their pesticides from. So the risks are there between our border, between Uganda and also between Kenya and Tanzania border, and especially the Tanzania border. And what we have done is try to create awareness and train the farmers at the border not to do that. But of course, you'll find that there are always people who do it. Then also we collaborate a lot with the border management committee, consisting of different organizations such as KEFIS, public health, and the customs, all of them. We have been training them and creating awareness so that if they see people doing it, they can report to us. But it's something that we need all that concerted efforts, including strengthening of PCPB at the entry points. We've been doing that to try and manage. Yeah. Then also, I think together also with the KEFIS, we also do a lot of training and surveillance, but also for KEFIS, because they also do the pesticide residue testing on the food. When they note that, and especially for exports, I must say that the very stringent actions are taken, but of course risk also remains for our local food that we need to strengthen more.
Okay. I know we've talked a lot about EU, yes. And in fact some of the proponents of the petition were talking about the banned products from the EU. Yes. But I also understand that the two organizations works with the European Union. Yes. In whatever you do, yes. Especially the markup program. Yes. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how that partnership, maybe on both of these organizations can tell us how that partnership is helping maybe sort some of these issues out.
Okay, maybe one way is us to understand one another with the EU, so that the expectations are not different from us when we understand one another, our situations, our expectation and the challenges we have that may be different from what the EU is having. But also the other thing is also, one thing I've also been encouraged, as a regulator, one thing I'm also talking with the industry and encouraging them is if pesticides are being withdrawn, what are the people who are withdrawing the pesticides using? And so they need to start thinking about introducing those pesticides also into Kenya as alternative use of what we are using. Because even if we keep them for now, it may not be for very long.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other one also from markup also we are doing is that we have also realized that the greatest, weakest link is how the farmers are using the pesticides. And so there's a lot of creation of awareness. And also agriculture is devolved also. We are trying to also build the capacity of the counties and encouraging them to revive the extension services for the farmers so that they can use the pesticides safely as recommended. But mostly before the farmers even wait for the government, we are also creating awareness of them to read the label and understand how to use it and use the pesticides safely, because there are no safe pesticides. Even the biologicals, you can't drink them and they will harm you. And some of them, these organisms like the microorganisms, they may even start growing in your body. So you have to handle them well. If you are to, but you need to control the pests if you are to do good agriculture. So in all these, we want to inculcate a culture of safe use of pesticides and the way you handle them as you use them to the farmers, so that they don't take things lightly, because you can find some places where farmers are even using their hands to mix the products.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without
Eric,
protective clothes. Yeah.
Eric,
Yes.
when it comes to the Agrochemical Association of Kenya, how are you partnering, or when it comes to your partnership with the Market Access Upgrade Program, that is markup, how is it coming out? Or what are some of the issues that you've been able to iron out?
I think for my take is EU has done quite a bit when you talk about market inclusivity. And when we talked about the smallholder farmers, training the smallholder farmers to access the European market to improve their livelihoods, you have seen how they have changed the market standards, market access, and all those things. EU has done quite a bit of work. Now, the decision, the EU Green Deal that people talk about it is an excellent thing. Excellent. Talk about sustainable, meaning we must be sustainable. Even in Kenya here, we must be sustainable. We cannot continue doing things the way we are doing. The only problem comes in now when not even EU, other people taking that narrative to mean something else. And now the threat is not even in Kenya alone. The threat even is if we have to implement that and Kenyans will not export the produce to EU as earlier planned, as earlier because of market inclusivity, then even it negates the effect of the investments of EU, what it put in through called ECP, to make sure that these farmers are trained, they comply with market requirements and everything. So it's double-edged sword, this narrative, because farmers will not be able to export. The 155 billion Kenyan shillings that accesses the EU market will go down in the trades, and therefore not getting the work that I've done. So we work with EU in those parts, through the projects through EU to train farmers, to do market access and everything else. So the worry is, and also for us, we support the EU Green Deal, and we have a lot of engagements, even as an industry where we are proposing. We are doing quite a lot of things, our members are doing quite a lot of things in green technology, in recovery, being carbon neutral, which actually informs, and even the technologies we are using currently in terms of carbon emissions. We see zero tillage in Mount Kenya because of some of these products. We are doing intensification of agriculture rather than expansion into forest. And those are the things that inform the EU Green Deal. So we have our own kind of a green industry Green Deal that maybe probably we need to amplify and engage more. So those ambitions of being sustainable with EU, we support. But then they are really fragmented that we need to have a practical solutions to match it. So we are not criticizing EU, we are not doing anything else. We are saying that the narrative that are rising from the products that have been banned in EU, that we need to look at these things. And remember, it's choice. Companies that are exporting, they have accessing markets because we have alternative products. But those products that we are saying that they are used here in Kenya to produce food that we cannot get it from EU, for instance. We can get it from US. So we have to respect those kind of things and allow Kenya to export to EU because we have alternatives, but again also develop its agriculture to trade with other neighboring countries so that we are not a food importer. That's basically what we are saying. So, but in terms of engagement with EU, we have excellent partnerships. We are working together to change this, supporting farmers, making sure that they access the market, they respect the product labels, they put on personal protective equipment and everything else. So that's what I can say around there.
Okay. Do you also think, now that we are talking about, we are saying we may not do away with chemicals.
Yes.
It may be impossible.
Yes.
Do you think we'll ever find a middle ground between those who are pro-chemicals and those who are pushing for ban of chemicals? Do you think we'll ever find a middle ground?
Of course. We believe and we have a lot of confidence in the process. Now, the Committee on Health from Parliament gave 17 recommendations. And we're happy that some of the recommendations have started being implemented by the competent authority, that is Pest Control Products Board. And one of the things that we also feel happy about is that all the petitioners also put in, I received a copy of the report of their comments for this process. And PCB is going, as a regulatory body, is going to look at the weight of evidence. So it's science, the weight of evidence, and the output of that work probably, it will bring all of us on the table so that everybody, we are speaking with the same voice. That while we believe there are concerns of health and error, but these have been addressed this way. So what is the challenge? Is the challenge training farmers, and then we put all the resources in changing the behavior of farmers. So it is clear that we are moving in the right direction. So what is wrong is just putting a certain narrative without considering actually the impact of what you're trying to do. Okay. To the people of Kenya and to the people of East Africa and the people of Africa as a whole.
Okay. Dr. Kimani, I know the Pesticide Control Board is the receiving end, find itself at the receiving end of all these debates and accusations. maybe going forward, do we really have laws and regulations that govern that really, if I'm found selling a product that is banned or is not allowed, what are the rules and regulations say about?
Okay, the operation of the Pest Control Products Board are guided by the Act of Parliament, Cap 346, and we have got various regulations there that spell out about the licensing of facilities, registration of pesticides, and all these laws guide on, and even how you register an agrovet. And so all these laws would encourage the citizens to lead them because they are the ones that guide our operations. In fact, also we do surveillance to ensure that people are complying with the law, and we even arrest them. Like now we have got 12 court cases of people who are non-complying, either selling without licenses or they are selling counterfeits, because also you find that if something is good, people will always try to counterfeit it. But also one thing I would want to correct is that the issue that the pesticides will ever go out of the market. Actually, even for the European Union, they still use pesticides. It's only that certain molecules, old ones, where new information has come up, and maybe the people feel that they could be having effects on human health, that there's a lot of campaign that they be withdrawn off the market. But the pesticides will always be used. Even them, they still use pesticides. In fact, even once in a while you see in the news the farmers campaigning that they return some of the pesticides that they have withdrawn because the pest that it was controlling has started building up and it can no longer do the farming of the crop. In fact, I saw another one on sugarcane recently, whereby they were considering returning a molecule that they had withdrawn because now the pest build-up could not allow the farmers to continue farming. So you find that pesticides will always be used, but what we need to do is, first of all, if a pesticide has been proved to have really adverse effect on human health and environment, that one, of course, is a candidate for being withdrawn from the market. But also the other thing of emphasis is for people to use the pesticides safely because they are poisonous. They can poison you. So you need to use them carefully as prescribed and also using protective clothes. PCPB enforces the laws, and what we ask from the public is that if you see people not complying with the law, you can report to us, and we'll follow up on those issues and ensure that the people follow the law for their safety and for the safety of the environment. And also for our markets, because also we have to use the pesticides responsibly and those ones that are allowed for particular markets.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I understand our time has run out. I wish we had more time to still have this conversation. And I want to thank both of you for sparing time to come and educate us a little bit about the use of pesticides and why we may not be able to do without pesticides. For our viewers back at home, that is all we had today. Until next time, goodbye.